Okay, part 2 with Mik Scarlet, aka the Kindred. Yeah, how did you start working on TV?
Right, I was I was playing in one of my bands in a club in Luton. And Luton is not a club for people like us. It's not a town for people like us. There was a little tiny thing, but I was playing in the Tropicana Beach, which was for casual funkies who dance around the handbag. And I happened to get a gig playing in the foyer. Back then you had to have a band play every week to get a music license. So they hired me to just sit in there and play a couple of songs on electric synth to get that covered. And every now and again they'd let me play inside. So I'm playing inside with all my gear and the full band. And my computer blows up. So I have to fix it. So I'm fixing a big black toaster. And I'm telling jokes, thinking they're gonna bottle us off. So I did a thing, I knew what was wrong, so I fixed it. It got working in about 2 or 3 minutes of just waffle. Fixed it, got it working, did the gig, left the stage, and a TV producer who was in the audience on a stag night came up and said, you were amazing, not so keen on the music, but you managed to keep an audience entertained while, he was the one that said, while you fixed what looked like a toaster. So, would you like to come for a screen test? And I was like, yeah, cool, because especially at that point, that's when, if you got on telly, you tended to get a record deal. It was just weird. Loads of TV presenters got record deals, so I thought, yeah, great, this would be a way of doing it. So I did it, and I did the screen test, got a job on ITV, presenting a show called The Help Road Show, with Toya Wilcox, Garth Crooks, the footballer. I can never remember if it's Crooks or Brooks, because one's a country singer and one's a footballer. But anyway, Garth, somebody who played football. Simon Fanshawe, that now runs Stonewall. There was and it was kind of this weird show where we went all around the country trying to get people to be more green. So 1989 this is. Green issues, recycling, using electric vehicles, walking more, cycling more, all the things that everyone's banging on about now, 1989. I did that, I liked it, I like being paid to be mouthy. And then I contacted Channel 4, they were doing a show called The Survivor's Guide. And they were doing this whole programme on disability, and I said, well, is anyone disabled presenting it? And they went, oh, didn't think of that. Hello, I said, I am freely available at reasonable rates. So I did that. That got me into Channel 4 Youth Department. So I did a load of stuff with them on this Survivor's Guide and on a show called Sex Talk, which was all rude about sex.
Actually, that reminds me of a song by To Power, is it? Sex Talk. I swear they had one.
It was all the rage back then. We talked about sex a lot back then. People think we didn't, but we did. And I did a whole documentary on sex and disability, one of the first times that anyone had talked about it on television. Only beaten by Nabil Shaban, that had done something sort of sexy about 2 years earlier when Channel 4 first launched. But anyway, from there I went on to doing kids TV, and I was like, when I got called into the office in the meeting, I was like, kids, are you sure I sing in a band? I'm a bit weird. And they were like, you'll be brilliant. And I was told I had to be rather than be a kids TV presenter, I had to pretend to be like their naughty older brother, who was always trying to get in the way. And I did, I just mucked about with the kids. They loved it. It was a show called Beat That, where you'd got 4 non-disabled kids and 4 disabled kids, and you got them together, and then you went, right, run a restaurant, do a fashion show, stuff they couldn't do. And then instead of me helping them, I was the one getting in the way. So, and it just seemed to hit the public imagination. So I was getting between 2 and 4 million viewers a week for a show that was made like meant to be for kids. My next move was to CBeebies when it started. So I went and did a poetry show with Rick Mail.
Oh no!
Called Wham Bam, and it was all about poetry.
Yes,
and I did one called Horror and one called School, I think. Anyway, so I did that, and then at the same time I started working at BBC on their disability shows. So they had a show called 1 in 4, and then they started up what was called From the Edge, that was made entirely by disabled people. Produced, researched, written, presented, everything. And I started working for them and spent 10 years working there. And so that was how I did it, and it kind of, but one of the things about the media that it really doesn't like thinking about is the fact that it doesn't really like, it likes new, it likes talent search and projects and we're going to up our game. But what it never really did was actually invest in the talent it had. So, before me, there was people like Nabil Shaban. I did a load. About the same time, Julie Fernandez became the first disabled actor in a soap. And yet her career kind of did, and we all kind of went at some point. And then they went, oh, talent search. Oh, hello, Addy. And then, Addy's career should have been far more meteoric than it has been. And now you've got people like Sophie Morgan and a lot of the people that work on the paras. And again, there's not this career trajectory for everybody. They kind of, and they don't like being reminded of it. So lots of people now are going, oh, I'm the first to do this. And it's like, no, I was the first to do, like Julie was the first, Nabil was the first. And it's weird the way that the media especially likes to rewrite its own history, because it doesn't like to go, oh, in 1989, we hired a disabled presenter to do a mainstream TV show at prime time. Because if they admit that, then why haven't we got anyone doing it now? But it's still the case of, we shouldn't be as far back, I think, as we are. I think that by now it shouldn't be such a big deal to go, oh, Sophie Morgan's doing a travel show, or Addy's doing a programme about Africa. It should be normal, and yet it's still a big deal. Well, and I think that is because they dropped the ball. I mean, I met a very senior executive at a major television company. I wheeled in to talk about a show, and he went, look, I'm going to be honest, I'm not having any effing cripples on my channel. And that's to my face. And it wasn't illegal back then, so you just went, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your honesty.
I mean, nowadays, normal is just like, there is no such thing as normal. We're all like weirdos and look funny, and and we all love each other. You know what I mean? Like, especially I don't know, because I'm part of the old scene. Because now I've been part of that scene for so long now, since 2018. It's like, you don't even know, like, you're not used to anyone saying, "Oh, that's not normal." You know what I mean? Everyone's just, because no one's normal there. Do
you know what though? I think you've hit the nail on the head. One of the big ones is we belong to a scene that is really accepting. I've taken loads of my disabled friends that are much more normal to alternative clubs, and they're like, wow, no one's staring at me, no one's making a big deal out of it. These are people with quite obvious visible impairments. People would say brittle bones or something, and everyone's been, are you all right? Do you need any help? They've welcomed them. I think that we have a kind of a very different attitude to difference. And it's kind of why I really loved, like, when the Camden was a hub, Kensington Market was a great place to shop, Kings Road. You went there and it didn't matter that you were disabled, because you were part of our tribe.
You do a lot of disability training and language when it comes to important topics. Is that a video I saw?
Yeah, I moan a lot about language. Yeah, I do a lot of, I started when I was still doing music and clubbing and stuff, and I worked in clubs because I worked with the Ministry of Sound when it first opened to make it really accessible, and worked with Coco when it first opened to get that accessible, and I've worked with the Palace to put their loo in and all this kind of stuff, and I was doing that for free basically, so I got in for nothing, so it was quite handy. I got lifelong freebies for most clubs, which was great. Then I retrained and became a skilled access advisor. So I spent probably about the last 10 years, which I know to you is not very many years, it's a long time ago, but for me in my career it's nothing. So I've been doing it for about 10 years, and it's kind of weird because it gives you an insight into why things don't change as quickly as they should do, because you meet the people that genuinely say things like, but we don't get many disabled people come here. And you're like, yeah, because we can't get in and we're not welcome. And if we don't feel welcome and we can't get in, we're not going to come. So you not being accessible is why we're not here. It's not that we aren't there to get in the first place. And there's all people about, there's too much money and all this stuff. But I've had a very charmed life. I didn't mind fighting my way into places when I was young. But there are lots of younger people that can't or don't want to or shouldn't have to. And it's time for that to change. So that's kind of why I did it. And But language, yes, I can bore for England on language. I've written articles, I've presented online videos, because to me language is really important. I write a lot, but I also think that the terminology used, and it's like, for many years it was people with autism, and then the autistic community said no, we are autistic people, and it's because it's not an impairment, it's an identity, it's part of who we are. So it's not something we carry around in a handbag. We are it, and I think that things like that really matter, and it's language needs to be led by the people it describes. So I really hate it when non-disabled people go, but you're not disabled, are you? You're differently abled. It's like, hold me back, matey. It's very important to me, and I think it should be important to everybody. Lots of people go, oh, it don't really matter though, does it? And it's like, no, it does. Because if you can get the language right and get people to think right with their language, then it changes the way people think about you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it gives them the ability to see you as a whole person.
About the poem you were doing in one of your videos. About surviving lockdown. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's really funny. When lockdown started, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Because we're going to get the whole of society to see what it's like to be disabled. They're going to stop being able to do what they want. They're going to be made to have restrictions on their ability to do and live and whatever, and they'll come out of it and be all, I get it now, I've been disabled by society, I get the social model. Oh, if only. Yeah. So I wrote that poem at the start of it all when I was feeling very positive, and I was thinking, we're going to see a wonderful change in society, and now we're coming out of it, although we're probably going to go back into it soon. And I think that maybe I was a little bit optimistic, because instead I think people have become a little bit, I don't really give a shit about anyone, I want to do whatever I like. The portrayal of disabled people in the arts is rarely positive. Whether it's Clara in Heidi, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, or almost every Bond villain, if you're disabled, you're not seen as being able to teach non-disabled people anything. I think at this difficult time, as we battle the coronavirus, we should re-examine this stereotype. The media is filled with stories about public figures not coping, and social media is flooded with people who find the whole concept of being stuck at home for such a long period impossible to imagine. Yet for me, as a disabled person, staying isolated is nothing new. Like many other disabled people, I've spent quite a few periods of my life being stuck at home, including a couple of times where I couldn't even get out of bed for 6 months or more. But I didn't just get through being isolated, I survived, and I even enjoyed myself. So, as an act of civic duty, here is my disabled person's guide to surviving and thriving in lockdown. Give yourself time to adjust. Don't panic if you're finding things tough at first. This is a huge change, and you won't always cope. Be okay with that. This isn't the time to judge yourself based on the way things were. It will get better. Also, be kind to others. If you're inside with the family or flatmates or friends or whoever, remember that they are finding this tough too. Give them a little slack, eh? It was weird to be asked to write it for Front Row, and of course, doing it reminded me that I needed to improve my recording studio's mic setup. So I actually went out and bought a load of microphones. So if I'd have done it now, it would sound much better. Don't ever do it in your living room with a little handheld recording thing.
So before we finish, do you have a message for like the next generation of Camden punk disability artists, activists?
I wouldn't restrict it to Camden. I know we're a Camdenites, but I think that, like I said, I think that disabled people are, at the moment, there's quite a lot of pressure to conform. And it can, you can love grime, you can love whatever, as long as if you're out of the mainstream, you can really follow your bliss, because lots of those scenes are much more supportive. So if you aren't into it, check it out. Go to an alternative club. They'll get you. It'll be great. And never let anyone tell you what you should be, what you should do. And it's always stayed with me. Ever since that headmaster said, "Don't dream, be boring, be like your mum and dad." And it's like, well, I'm never going to be like my mum and dad, so why should I even try?
Exactly. That's what I keep saying. Like, me and my parents are like completely different. You know what I mean? Like, I'm probably the only like goth punk in my family. You know, because they're all, you know.
Oh, well, I'm definitely the only one in mine. But there we go.
He's basically a veteran. So,
I'm, you know, granddad.
I'm just a rookie compared.
Granddad punk. That's me.
Yeah.
I went to a Channel 4 meeting in the noughties when the new metal thing started, and I was trying to get a new metal music show made for Channel 4, and they went, "Oh, I don't know, do you mean like all the kids with blue hair that you see in shopping centres?" And I was like, "Yeah," and they went, I was like, "If you want to make it for them," I said, "Well, if you know that there's enough kids in every town that are all sitting together in shopping centres drinking cider and getting pissed off because there's nothing on telly for them, then you know you've got a market." And it's always been, our scene have always been ignored by the whole industry, been just cut out. So that's why this whole online thing is great. If you're young and you're weird, make a show for television, but don't make it for television. Put it online and everyone watch it.
Like a web series.
Yeah, man, that's it. It's like everything, it's like music. Fuck the record companies. Release it on Bandcamp.
Yeah. What are you currently working on?
Right, I'm very lucky at the moment. I've got another career 360. My career has been music, television, access consultancy, and now I'm producing a theatrical production at the Barbican. In 2019 I went to see Jamie Hale's Pit Party, and the performance was amazing, and I thought they were amazing, and I was very lucky. They used to be a fan of my kids' TV show when they were young, so they asked me to host the kind of, a bit like this, kind of end of event chat, where Jamie and a couple of the other performers all talked about their process. So I saw an advert saying, "We're doing another one this year and we'd like a producer." And I used to, when I was in bands, I managed bands and I was a tour manager. So there's basically lots of the skills of a theatrical producer are basically that. It's getting things to work, what was it? Jamie describes me as a cross between the Enforcer and the Duracell Bunny. So I'm kind of hyper and also shout at everybody when they need to be. So, and I applied for it and got it, and it's been wonderful because Jamie's another one like me that believes in leaving a legacy and promoting new talent and getting the disability arts scene used to be very insular, but also a bit kind of, everyone wanted to be first, so no one wanted to support each other.
So it's like a man for himself.
Yeah, it was a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still good, but there was quite a lot of like, I want to be the first one to do that, so I don't want you to do it.
Rumble.
Luckily, of course, now everyone's done it. So now it's about lifting everyone up. And Jamie's like me; they want to leave a legacy of new talent that grows. So their career grows, but everyone grows after them. And the more of us there are, the more people will see how amazing our scene is, how amazing disability culture is, how creative and wonderful we are, and how beneficial to the broader art scene we are. So I've been doing that, and you're going to have really challenging stuff, you're going to have sing-along stuff, you're going to have comedy. We've got one of our artists is going to be exploring what it's like to be dumped, which sounds quite serious, and it is a bit in places, but it's also really funny, and it might get quite messy because there's going to be paint thrown around. We've got another person that's going to be looking at the idea of wellness when you're autistic, and how mindfulness is almost impossible to do when you're autistic, and it's going to be really funny. And all the people have been given workshops and training and mentoring, and it's been amazing, and I can't wait. So that was another career 360, and it's one of the things, most of the people I know who are disabled or part of our community, whether they're deaf or neurodiverse, we have to have lots of different feathers in our caps because you can't earn enough money from doing any one thing. And this has been great, and I'm definitely going to be doing more of it, and so I'm available at very reasonable rates. So if you want me to produce your artistic endeavour, contact me through mikscarlet.com. Thank you very much.
On that note, peace out, folks.